100.4 FM, Harare Zapi, The Crunch. We're also still on our Facebook page as well. We're getting under the hood as we always do. And did you know, thanks to you, we did well with this show last year. We scooped National Motoring Journalist of the Year. Thank you so much for your support and for tuning in. And as always, we start off our show looking at trends that are happening in and around the automotive industry. And just in case you've been trying to buy your own car or you have bought a car, today we're going to be looking into an issue that most people don't seem to quite understand, the importation of cars into our country for private use. We're going to talk a little about that a little bit later. As always, we've got our car enthusiast in the building, Tafazonya Buta, who always walks with us, helping us understand what is going on in and around the car industry and also trends we should be looking out for. And a stranger, and I say a stranger because it's been a minute since we last seen this one. I'm so excited. Honest is back in the building. Honest is in the car industry. Honest, and we thought, well, if he's the guy who is actively involved in selling of cars, so he's here, Honest Girazi, and he is, I'll show you where he sells his cars from, so you can also go and give him a buzz. We're also going to be reviewing a car. If you are I called it the wrong name just now, so I'm watching my tongue. What are we reviewing today?
Today we'll be reviewing the Ford Everest.
Ford Everest. You know, Papa, your pants up.
Not today, not for me.
I hope I just would zimba we'll find out in a minute. Welcome to Under the Hood, 90 minutes after 11. Talk to us about what's been happening in the last 7 days since we last here in terms of our car news.
Yes, so when it comes to the car industry, a lot of things happen, a lot of things change very quickly, and there's always a lot of news. We never run out of things to say as a car industry. And right now, the big buzz is on the Chinese car makers. They're making a big buzz in the industry at the moment because China is becoming a very dominant force and one you can't ignore. People don't know this, but China has been making vehicles for a very long time. A few weeks ago, we talked about China now being the largest exporter of vehicles, overtaking the Japanese, and not by a little while, by quite a big margin. So people tend to think that, China just makes the vehicles, but we're talking about homegrown Chinese vehicles. There are 12 very strong brands from China. Most of them are known quite well within China and its borders. Remember, China has got well over 1 billion people that live there, so their car requirements are quite high, so it makes sense for them to make their own cars. But the notable vehicles for Southern Africa are Great Wall Motors, or GWM as it's more commonly known, BYD, Chery, and Bike. I always name that name wrong.
Yeah.
But these are the big players in Southern Africa. And these vehicles are making waves because not only are they present in these countries or in Southern Africa and in Africa as a whole, but they're starting to make a very, very big footprint and clawing over market share from traditional vehicle brands that have a very strong stronghold on these markets.
So I've seen the new Chery, and it does look quite nice. I've been impressed by it.
Yes, very nice vehicle. I think the Chinese have been doing their research in terms of the car industry. In the car industry, like we mentioned before, there's a lot of stealing, as it were, from each other in terms of knowledge. So you find that the Chinese players are now getting a lot of big names from the European car maker industries. So you find that your Great Wall Motors has got someone who's ex-Range Rover. BYD will probably have someone in the ranks from another very notable car manufacturer, and so forth and so forth. So all this knowledge is now coming to the Chinese, and they're inputting it into their technical know-how and into, well, fortunately for them, how cheaply they can produce these vehicles over their rivals. And value is now being driven to the consumer, which is what's pushing these vehicles forward in the respective markets.
All right, talk to us a little bit more about Chinese vehicles. Do they feel Chinesey on the inside?
They used to, and that's it. People used to know, like, some of the older vehicles. I think, wow, we've seen our Fords, we've seen Photons of late, which were not so good. The first trial runs of the global market vehicles in the form of GWMs when it first started off, then growing into Haval and other vehicles. Chery as well being a relatively new player in the market as well. The initial offerings were not that great. They were good vehicles in terms of value, what they were, but in terms of a package, maybe they left a bit to be desired. This has now changed completely, and this has come from that knowledge shift, or the knowledge sharing from them bringing in big names. So now you find that Chinese cars are standing well and truly neck and neck with some of the big car makers.
In Zimbabwe, I know we have quite a few GWM that you mentioned. Haval, we see a lot of Havals on our streets.
Yes.
Do you think we're going to have a lot of Chinese cars on our roads?
100%, 100%. I think that,
what would
yes,
make us pick them?
value, I think, is the biggest strong point. What the Chinese have learned is that people want value, and China is able to put value in these vehicles.
Right.
So you're finding that certain features or technology that's only for the elite vehicles or models is now coming to these cheaper, more affordable vehicles. And it's not just about the value in terms of what you put in the car, ticking more boxes on the spec list. No, not just that. Build quality is also a big thing. And they're backing it up with the very big warranties. In some cases in South Africa, you actually have, in some instances for the Chinese car makers, 5 years, up to 7 years, unlimited mileage warranties and so forth. This is putting your money where your mouth is, because you're saying my product can go the distance and I'm willing to put it behind my words behind it in a warranty.
Yeah.
So that brings trust and value, good combination.
Got you. Honestly, unotengesa mota watu wambona here iwana biak bike iwana Haval tinongoziva munhu one muno muZimbabwe unotengesa sefange Haval asi yakanaka zvayo fange nyowanza vakugadzirisa. Somebody who's in the car industry, muri kuona here kuwanda kwemota dzakaita sana Haval, for example, kana dzimwewo dzamunyenzozoti dzakagadzirwa kuChina idzi?
Yeah.
Oh.
I can say motikari idzodzo dziri kuwanda muindustry, but tikudziona dziri mumakasels akaita like anenge ane motikari dzinenge dziri mabrand new cars, of which isusu kazhinji we deal with it's brand new yamuZimbabwe.
I get you.
Not kuti it's a brand new.
Yeah, it's a used car.
It's a used car, but kana yamuZimbabwe it's a brand new.
Got you.
Of which these cars Chinese kaita na vana Chery, vana Haval. Mostly untoiona muridzi achitokudza kuti ndakatotanga nayo from zero.
Right. I wonder why. Say tisiri kuti tisata kusajaira here chii chiri tisati tsvakatoga tisamirana tafadzwa kuti vatiunzire muno.
Okay, I think isusu tradition yedu isusu maZimbabweans tiri vanhu vaya vanongojairira kuti chinhu ichi chakashandiswa nanasekuru. Like for example, tese togona kubvumirana kuti munhu wese ukamubvunza kuti which car do you want, yakasimba yaunoti you won't have problems, anoudza ndoda Toyota. Of which dzese motikari dzingori bo, motikari inongoda kungobatwa zvakanaka. Car handling is very important.
Right.
Of which vanhu havazvinzwisise.
Right. Tinoda kutedza zvakakora tichiziva
Exactly.
kuti kana waita mari uri kutsvaga iyaya ine wai iyaya ine badge inomira pamusoro pebonnet, waita mari, you want to drive a Mercedes Benz, you want to drive a BMW. I get you. It'll be interesting to see if we are actually going to see a pickup in used Chinese vehicles coming into the country. Will it still be as reliable as a brand new one, I wonder?
That's a very interesting question, and something I was thinking about when Honest was talking. One of the reasons why I guess we don't see too many great imports from the Chinese brands is that when China makes their vehicles in mass, they make them for their own market. So they use various different trims, specifications, engine requirements, tolerances that fit the application there, but might not make them viable for export markets coming to countries like our country or our region.
Right.
And also, China has only opened up its doors more recently in terms of exporting brand new vehicles to foreign markets. So again, that means that the numbers are not that many yet to justify second-hand vehicles. Yes, we're going to benefit in Zimbabwe now that there's a big influx of Chinese brands in South Africa. Second-hand vehicles will definitely become available from there, but not the traditional second-hand vehicles we know. These will be younger cars.
Yeah.
And you can't beat the Japanese in terms of, like what Honest was saying. They have a bigger market when it comes to the grey imports of second-hand vehicle market. They just have a bigger offering, vehicles that can come here straight from the batch.
What do you think would make Chinese car makers big in Africa? What would China need to do to make those cars more easily acceptable, especially for second-hand use?
It's going to be a very interesting question and very difficult one to address. I think they have to change, or rather, we as the buying countries or regions have to be willing to accept a Chinese spec vehicle, but it's not so easy. These are vehicles that will be made and engineered for the Chinese use application, which is not as rigid as ours. Let's take a pickups as an example. You know, there's always been the stories about, no, we're getting these great imports from Thailand, per se, in terms of commercial vehicles or light commercial vehicles, pickups and double cabs. And you tend to find that, or they're manufactured there as brand new, you tend to find that they might have suspensions which are not as strong or fit the requirement here.
Yeah.
So that's one major thing to think about. The suspension might not be good enough for the climate and the conditions here. So I think in terms of mass Chinese vehicles coming on the market, maybe not so much, but we can be happy for people who can afford the brand new options. There's some very strong value propositions that are on offer. Second hand, I think we are about 10 years away from realizing that.
And I'm also realizing because you know China ogadzira ma EV nei this is kuno Zimbabwe tiri ku hybrid atsatashika chinhano chokuti takutoda kutenga mota where it's fully electric, right? Honest?
Yeah, in Zimbabwe. Yes, you can find one or two. Siremo. But nino katondiratidza kuti iyo togona kutongudza kuti
andide. Yeah, that's a very valid point. Are we, as consumers, are we truly ready for EV?
I don't think in terms of mass, no.
No.
I think it's more of a very niche vehicle locally. Even hybrid technology is the correct technology for Africa right now in terms of
a combination of both.
But the challenge is that the market does not yet understand it.
Exactly.
The reason why I say this, let's talk about second-hand hybrid vehicles coming to the country. People are buying them in droves, but they understand exactly what they're buying. Because more times than not, and I think honestly you can maybe hopefully confirm this. Most times they're buying a problem, and that the battery, they don't understand how the battery works and therefore what the condition should be like. So when it comes in, it works fine for the first few months, and then when it has challenges, the backup, the proper corrective measures, and also the correct understanding of why am I buying a hybrid in the first place is not there.
Yeah.
But the fact that people are buying them now, and yes, challenges are happening, the learning curve is now steep. People have to learn and understand. And I think that will help ultimately as to go forward.
Yeah. Well, Wambuti said, honestly, it's used cars that are already problematic near battery. My electric batteries.
Yeah. My hybrid cars, mostly kanachigadzero. They say battery hybrid system, in fact. I know it will last for 10 years, mostly. Okay? So it's also tichitenga motikari. We have this in Kiratakapoa, yakunzi tinopinza motikari dzirichi less 10 years. So mostly ndinotenga mota ne 9 years, ne 10 years. Inogona kunge ichifamba for the first month in a battery area very bore. But after that, overall battery hybrid system akutina. Why? 10 years dziyadzapfuura. And besides, zvinhu zviya zve-hybrid systems izvi zvakatogadzirwa in a way yekuti zvinotoserviswa like you do proper checks, of which isusu kana ichifamba tiri kunoko ichingoita zviri normal. You don't need to go for checks or what. Techingoti iri bo since iri kufamba. Then you end up lose a hybrid system here, and to replace it, sometimes I go pandakamboita challenge mumwe munhu akaitenga motikari kwandiri akadzoka achindudza ndachajwa 2.5 for that hybrid. So it's a challenge kuti vanhu tinotenga motikari not knowing my problems ainawo pamberi. Tinotenga taona zvataona ipapo, then the after problem ichazouya hatisi kuzvisa.
It's Capital 100.4 FM Harare Zabi. We're talking this morning about automotive news. China at the end of last year was sitting at possibly number 2, being the biggest car manufacturer. Well, less than a month later, they've toppled everybody, Japan, Tokyo, and they're sitting at number 1, and we're discussing some of the models that they would buy. Would you drive a second-hand Chinese car? 0719-100-404. In the pickup world, Tafadzo, what's been happening?
No, pick back to the Japanese now. So Nissan, the Navara is due for a facelift, or a new version rather, not a facelift, a new version. So now they're starting the design work on that vehicle, and we're tipped to have the model out and on the roads by early next year. That's 2025. So in terms of the first renders and what the vehicle looks like, we can expect the vehicle to be much bigger, and I think this is being pushed by the competition. If you look at some of the new offerings in terms of double cab pickups, let's talk about the Ford Ranger, let's talk about the new Triton, which is coming out soon, going to other parts of the world, but coming out soon, the Amarok itself. Double cab pickups are getting bigger, and they're getting much bolder in terms of the design.
Gotcha.
So the Nissan Navara is going to be no different. We expect to see some very bold styling elements in the vehicle. The vehicle might actually become a little bit bigger to keep up with the competition and look a little bit more aggressive. I think that's the look you want to go for the double cab market.
Yeah.
These vehicles are workhorses, are vehicles that go into rougher terrain and can still be used for daily use, but they must look the part. They must look tough. So we can expect to see that in the new Navara once all the renders are now complete, but all are tipping towards a bigger, bolder design.
I'm always disappointed with the back of the Navara. It's like, I know Simba, I don't be see effort. My lights jet over, and that's also what we didn't like about the Mercedes X-Type, right? That it was like, okay, we know who you're supposed to be, but at least show up guy like you're supposed to be. And I feel as if Navara for the back for me didn't do anything interesting. My lights, there's no excitement about that. The front, yeah, for a 2024 car for me doesn't feel futuristic enough. I get the size, the more masculine, robust look, but it doesn't feel like a 2024 car just looking at it.
Yeah, so I think, you know what, that comes back down to, always reference back to this, the Japanese. Our Japanese friends are very conservative and very practically minded when they're designing anything. So the backlights are the backlights. Do they work? Yes. Are they reliable? Yes. That ticks the box. Opening the load tray, is it easy enough and functional? Yes. They put it down. So I think it's a very Japanese trait. And also Nissan, I think, as a vehicle maker as well, they tend to err on the side of practicality. They are not known for very comfortable and lush interiors. It may start now because of competition.
That's what we said about Isuzu and Toyota, the Hilux and
it's a Japanese thing. It's a Japanese thing. It's
all but they've upped their game though.
They had to.
They've had to.
They've had to. But you know what? It's one thing to say, listen, I want to run a race against Usain Bolt tomorrow, and it's another thing to actually build up towards racing towards them.
Right.
So yes, they have to play catch up instantly, but doesn't mean they're doing it well. But at least they have their foot in the right direction. And let's hope that the Japanese car makers start to go that direction, because the fight with motor vehicles now is no longer outside; it's now inside.
Yeah.
And truth be told, the Navara itself, the new design elements they've shown us for now, the new Ford Ranger, or the Ford Ranger itself, the VW Amarok, these vehicles all practically look the same.
But I actually like the Photon back.
Yes. The Photon is actually making
that's a Chinese car.
That's another Chinese car. So that's another topic as well, because we talked about China and pickups before, and here's Photon. It has brought vehicles in before, and we talked about the apprehension of Chinese vehicles. It was a pickup, yes. Was it practical? Yes. Could it stand up to the old guard, the Japanese? Probably not. But now they're coming with a new version for the second quarter of this year. And this vehicle is tipped to have now all the development put into it, all the thought behind it, and it's going to be launched in South Africa first, which is good news, which means they've tested the market here to make sure that all the things they did wrong in the first version are now addressed. And mostly it has to do with suspension, reliability, and general usability of the vehicle.
All right, it's
So
Capital 100.4 FM Harada. We're just doing a rundown of all interesting things happening in the automotive industry. Now, there's another story that made headlines. This was a local story of a woman who lost her rebate case that she'd taken to court.
Yes. So I think it had to do with a returning resident rebate she had applied for a vehicle she was trying to import for when she was coming from out of the country and coming back in, which was rejected for a number of reasons. I think part of it, if I'm not mistaken, was the superseding of some laws versus when she applied. Also, her eligibility for actually importing a vehicle under this rebate. So ultimately, she lost. But now it raises the question around that rebates, importation of cars and so forth, which is a very good stepping stone for the conversation which we'll have today about understanding it, because it isn't a walk in the park. It isn't an easy process. It's one that's riddled with a lot of do's and don'ts, and I think when one goes in it without the full understanding, a question like this lady, I think she had the understanding, and I think in some circumstances maybe things didn't just go her way. But it can go the same way if you don't understand the process well, which ultimately leads to more money being paid. I think for her, because she's lost it, she wants to keep the car. She now has to pay a certain amount of duty, probably VAT, which is not free. It's money. We use the words duty and VAT. This means money out of your pocket to a paying point. So this is money you do not budget for a car. You thought you were getting for X amount, and now you have paid Y amount.
And honestly, help us understand a little bit more about how this works. So this woman actually, I think, lost this case on a technicality. Sometime early January, and then I think she then tried to apply. I think she arrived on the 30th there, and they say no, this was 2 weeks after the amendments have been made. Saka, how should to qualify? She says no, but can I watchinja? That take a process. The fanga kuhikwa kanokuti temwazoya indanguri ndatanga. And but our court has not heard it. And it says, listen, the issue is not even so much about when you've done it, but you not understanding what qualified you for rebate. Honest, help us understand the idea of bringing a car into Zimbabwe. When we say duty must be paid, what does that even mean? What is duty to be paid on a car that you want to bring into Zimbabwe? I set up rebate, but you got a duty in Badagwa.
Okay. That I think it's something like a mandatory. Government and not a Zimbabwean government only. Because I say other countries you cannot import out, you have to pay duty.
Right.
And that's a mandate. To import something, there's a duty that you need to pay.
Right.
But duty, I think you're not determined any change or return.
Okay.
You are paying it. My duties will pay in USD, then Mango will pay in local currency.
Okay. So we have what is it based on? Throughout there's cost of what? There's freight. There's insurance. Wa.
Okay. So pa kutenga motikari papapo, pa kutenga motikari. Tine zvavanotarisa ivo kuti va calculate duty and it. Tine yavanoti hanzi CIF, cost, insurance and freight. And it. Do zvavanotarisa. So it's actually the amount that you used to purchase your vehicle. Then watenga motikari, tunozati motikari aingonzi yatengwa from Japan, then yatosvika paborder reZimbabwe. Kune kwadzinosvikira kwakaitarisira kuti inonzi kune maports. Like there's Tanzania,
there's
Durban.
Right.
Okay. So toti yasvikira kuDurban. There are charges that you are going to pay kuti motikari inosvika pa entrance ya inopinda nayo ichipinda muZimbabwe.
Okay.
So there's those costs vano add up to the cost iyoyo yawanga wabhadhara uchitenga motikari, which is buying, purchasing your car and shipping ipapo. Then vo add up that amount yekubvisa motikari. Kana wanga wachibvisa motikari from Durban to Bedbridge, they add up that amount. Then there's a certain percent yavanoshandisa vachitarisa kuti which type of car are you importing? Is it a van? Is it a truck? Is it a private car? Saka kana vadaro vanobva vachishandisa percentage yavo.
Saka ini mubvunzo wangu ndewokuti saka sei mari iri kuenda kuZimra for example iri kudi kusara kuDurban noti matinonzi CIF freight insurance zvine neZimra zvinodi kungosara ikoko.
Okay. Mari idzo hadzisi inini hangu I'm not quite sure. But mari idzodzo hadzisi I don't think ndedzezimura
Oh.
dzezimura inozotorawo dzayo dzatinoti duty idzi specifically duty vana VAT ndo kuzimura idzi dzimwe dzatataura idzi vanongodzishandisa just to calculate the duty raunobhadhara iwe.
Okay, all right. It's Capital 100.4 FM. We are also live on our Facebook page. Tatenda wamukasej, kanzi mukoma talking about duty. Can you just tell us, Kuti, for a passenger vehicle, what percentage commercial, what percentage, what vehicle quality for Zim for RTGS duty, and which one pays all US dollars? Saka ndofunga makutombonya kuti runira muchimbofamba nesu tinyatsohwisa kuti zviri kufamba sei kwezvo.
Okay, pama-private cars apo tine mota dzakawanda pari pama-private cars. There are those hybrid cars that we were talking about. Kana ingori motikari ingori ikangonzi hybrid chete yakubhadhara RTGS and it then kozoya motikari dzisiri mahybrid. Then in Zimbabwe tine mutemo watakapiwa kunzi if the car exceeds 1.5 liter yakutobhadhara USD chete rakazvimirira. Then if it's below that iri kubhadhara half RTGS half USD. So zvavanoita vanoti private cars kana vacalculata zvatachimbotaura zvezve zvanasai FTTT zvezve vacalculata vaona mari yawabhadhara yakupechesa motikari kusvika yasvika pabhodha vanobva vachishandisa iyoyi 96%. Vanocalculata vachishandisa 96%. Vashandisa 96% iyoyo then ndo mari yaunobhadhara duty. But kana riri duty raRTGS vanobva vachicalculata votora USD voshandisa nerate bank rate ravo vochiisa mari yavo kulocal currency. Then you pay in local currency if it's hybrid or if it's less 1.5 liter vanobva vasplita into half.
Saka muri kuti isu zatofara ma2 liter ma2.5 ma3.2 zvese izvozvo zvine cost yazvoattracta.
Yes, unotobhadharawo
iri pamusoro bichana veduwe. Okay.
USD. Then koya ndofunga abvunzazve is it van or something else, I don't know.
Hanzi commercial what percentage?
Commercial, yeah. Then kuma-commercials tine akaita makombi mavhana aya ane a certain percentage yaanobhadhara. It's 65% if I'm not mistaken. Kana ari makombi 65% of which anobhadhara in what? RTGS also. So vanongoweka ne-USD but vozoconverta to local currency.
Right.
Then you pay in local currency.
So from what I'm seeing, the insurance, the freight value is fixed.
Izvozvo zviri we can't say it's fixed.
For example,
it's fixed, yeah. Kana pari pamotikari kuti let's say watenga Toyota Aqua. yeToyota Aqua inenge ichitozikanwa unzi yakamira zvakadai.
Right, but freight yacho ne-insurance.
Mostly zvinenge hazvisiyane.
Ndosaka pepe munhu anotengesa mota waya anongokucalculatira duty nekuti anenge ane fixed cost ye-freight ne-insurance ongozoisa cost yemota ipapo mumedzi dzavo.
Zvinongozosiyana nenyaya yecost yemotikari kuti motikari yaita mari ndo zvinongozoita kuti duty ritisiyane rimwe rinoti one day but uchiona kuti motikari isame car kai. But duty rate one day irate shoma mtana.
All right. So panozonzi custom duty, suffix tax, nana VAT zvazviizvi. Zviri mumo record dzadzimwe futi mari futi.
Isusu manje kana vachicalculate, all right. Kana vachikucalculate duty, zvese vanozvibatanidza. Then vanongozokubudisira iwe uchingonzi customs duty rako iri. But vanenge vadi vaisa vana VAT chichichichi
imomo.
Yes.
Zviri chi suffix ndo chicho. Usuffix chicho. Chicho. Or tax or surtax. Oh. No chicho.
I'm not so sure but
zvinhu zvatobhadhariswa.
Zvinhu zvatozoti.
Zvofamba zviripo.
Common katorona wediroro ndotongozo. Okay.
Got you. All right. So let's talk about suspension of duty. Pane imwe nguva yekuti pane vamwe vanhu vasingabhadhari duty. Zvoreve izvozvo kana vachinzi duty yasuspend.
Okay. Semuno muZimbabwe takanzi handiti nema-civil servants. Hanzi anosuspendwa duty maybe kana ane 10 years ari muindustry. saka iva vane motikari dzavanotenga and vane a certain amount yavanonzi ukatenga motikari iri more than this amount, then you have to pay excess duty.
Saka dzekwana Victor dziye dzatsikwani apa.
Dzekwana Victor undodambuka kuti.
Undodambuka nezvigumwe nemwiri wechikusiyako.
Zvatofanana kuti wangototeka uda. Hapana duty rasazenda.
Alright, so it has to be what? How much is it? 10,000 or less, isn't it?
Mostly vazhinji hanzi kune vane vari kuma-10, but I think vekuma-10 ivavo vakadzikiswa futi, because I heard with this year muna January vanhu vese vanga vari kuma-5,000 vava kuma-4,000, kune vanga vari kuma-3.5 mageneral hanzi muchima general yendere vava kuma-2.5
kuyadzisibwe izvi maive. Alright. Saka kune vanhu vanotendegwa kutenga mota vasingabhadhari duty, vakaita sama-teacher, civil servants. Alright. Are you at not liberty, but are you able to give us what the requirements are for civil servants from what you've seen so far?
Okay, my requirements are civil servants. Firstly, it's a driver's license. Then vanoda payslip yako. I think those are very important because through payslip vano access vaona zvavakuda.
Right. Kune imwe futika no suspend kuenda kawa ye-disability inoshanda seyo, and kana chiti munhu wakaremara ane zvimwe 2 une zviso 1 une makumbo 7 unenge wakaita sei paunozonzi uyu anokwana kupinda pevanhu nedisability, as far as you can tell?
About disability unoenda kwachiremba, kuna chiremba wemabhonzo ameno nechirungu vanomuti chienda kangano, kuna chiremba anonokunyorera tsamba, then akunyorera tsamba there is a certain percentage of disability yaanonyora patsamba yaanenge anyora, then you will take that letter woenda nayo kuZimbra. Zimbra ndo inonotarisa yoona kuti okay disability yake yanyorwa kunzi akakwara chakati, zvinoreva here kuti zvinomuaffecta maybe pakudriver kana kuti pakuita daily business, and so that kana vaona zveshuwa kuti zvinoakaafecta, then vanokubvumira kuti okay chitenga motikari, vanokuti chitenga kana watenga motikari chitiunzira invoice yemotikari, vonovaratidza invoice yemotikari votarisa, then munhu iyeye madisability vanonzi vanobhadhara. I think ndakambonzwa sekuti limit yavo iri ma-40k, tunotenga mota ye-40k, but unobhadhara inonzi VAT inonzi inozobhadharwa hayo in RTGS. Vakaicalculate amenoti is it 14.5% of the amount yaunenge watenga nayo motikari, if I'm not mistaken. So ndio vanocalculate nayo, then voisa ku-RTGS, you pay in RTGS.
Sounds simple and straightforward enough, or is it as simple and straightforward enough?
No, it's simple and straightforward enough in explaining. Not so much in the application.
Yes.
It has a number of different factors, especially if one is looking for a rebate. Like what Honest said, for a disability rebate, yes, it's something that's available, but there's steps towards doing it. That involves the doctor and what is said, how much of the driving ability is affected, of course the cost consideration of the vehicle, a waiting period because these are vehicles coming from outside of Zimbabwe as well. Looking as well as vehicles that you want to import generally as well, like say ordinary vehicles for the ordinary person, you must have an understanding of how big your engine is, what the basic calculation is and how much I'm looking at. And it all has an effect on how much you pay for the car ultimately. When everybody buys a car, regardless of a rebate, duty or VAT fee or otherwise, there's a cost consideration saying, listen, this is my ceiling. This is as far as I can go. So you must understand that all the nitty-gritties and the processes behind this will ultimately arrive to the price point you are happy to pay or below. So you have to understand these processes and ask questions. I think is very important. So that you know for sure.
Okay, let's get to the issue similar to this woman who you were returning raise. Returning raise no shanda say.
No, honestly speaking,
you haven't dealt with
returning raise. I don't know about it, but sekuziva kwangu nekunzwa before zvainzi unofanirwa kunge une motikari yawakatenga maybe uri kwawanga uri kuforeign land. There's a certain period yakanzi unofanirwa kunge wakambogara nayo handichaziva takanzi makore mangani. I don't know if you
inenge yadzi
still
10
remember. 10 years, right? Uinayo. Then that car ndiyo unokwanisa kuzouya woita returning raise yarinonzi RRD.
Saka muri kuti handigona kutenga mota ndichiza ndikudzoka kuZimbabwe muna December ndigoda kuita returning race pamota yacho.
Ndakambonzwa sekuti
Zvonetsa.
With new vehicles, I think pane mutemo when it's actually applicable, you can. But there's now certain conditions that need to be met. So I think with especially newer vehicles, because they're higher worth, it is well worth it to actually engage in agents that specialize in this. Who look at your conditions,
Right.
and you can, even though you're in a different country, you know, these days we use emails, you can ask and see. But the condition, when I have experienced this one, is that of course the vehicle has to be outside of Zimbabwe's borders. Money, there has to be proof that you paid for this vehicle using your own funds. And there was a lot of naughtiness being done where people will send their children who are abroad the money to buy the car. So they will look at situations like that and say like, hey, how can a student now afford a Mercedes-Benz? It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense.
Got you.
It's money you must show. And
I might be
capacity.
Chifayo's daughter, who knows? Hello, good morning and welcome to Capital.
Alright. Much more.
Alright, muda kuti tibvunza kuti children's home dzinopinda here pakutenga pakuverenga pekuti havabhadhare duty paunotenga mota. Alright, maita basi. Alright, and I think bvunzo wavo panyaya yedisability iyi. Yeah, I think this is where this question might fit in. But okay, the best way you can answer this question, yeah, my children's home, what would they be qualifying under?
It's a good question. Again, it falls under the classification you fall under. A disability rebate applies for someone who has a disability that can be proven. There's also your rebates that go to your NGOs, certain NGOs, non-governmental organizations, government itself. If you are a certain grade within government, you are entitled to also bring vehicles in duty and sometimes VAT free. So now it comes down to the classification of the children's home under how the organization was registered.
Right.
They could be entitled to some kind of rebate, but it's something they have to investigate depending on their qualification. It's very easy to do these things sometimes. Some of the simplest way to do this is actually to approach Zimba itself and present your papers in terms of how you are arranged as an organization, in this case, a children's home, and ask them if there's any rebates, maybe not just for vehicles, but other things as well, maybe to bring in things that benefit the children that you're keeping at your home. You might be surprised to lead you in the right direction.
I'm trying to figure out this disability suspension on duty. Is it to say, because Honest was explaining, I think it's classified even your disability and it's tomboti level 1. Let's just say, hypothetically, that's how it's classified. And what is that got to do with the suspension of duty, I wonder?
Papa, I think it's not about driving only. Was the kana vachitotenga a disability, sometimes you can produce a driver. I'm not the one who's going to drive it. I have this driver of mine, I'm not on the drive. So maybe varuda kuona kuti chikonzero cha maybe chauri kudira motikari kuti urikuda kuishandisei, because vamwe ndinozoona vachisteta pamatsamba dzavanonyora tuzembura kuti ndoda kuzoishandisa pandoita ma-checkups or ndoda kuzoishandisa pandoenda kumboita mabasa andoitawo kuti ndoendawo kuofisi pangu chichichichi ndo zvavanosteta.
Okay.
So I don't think it's about driving.
Okay. Until we have to buy cars, this sounds simple and straightforward until you've had to do this. I'm curious to hear from you as we are rounding up our discussion on Under the Hood. We'll be back again next week. Many thanks to our favorite car enthusiast, Tafazo Nyabuta, who comes in every single Thursday to help us figure out what's happening in the trends of automotive industry and how they may impact us as well. We also had our favorite car. Honest one go over. Tidimna no roba dai. No one go pipe go honest kana chikutsvaka.
So one go pana Central Avenue na 9th by Diamond Car Sales.
Are you on social media?
Yes.
Oh.
Facebook and Instagram. Lee Jones Motors.
Okay.
Yes.
And Taf, if we wanted to find you? Are you findable?
Very findable. Very simple email address, inquiries@zimoko.co.zw, and ask for Tafata.
And this is where you and I leave it. We will be back again next week, as we always do, talking all things to do with the automotive industry. I was wondering also from you to wazoti mota dzobva kuchina dzogadza kuchina ungadzitenga here kana kuti haudzitenge ndozvati unosimanya kutsvaga dzimwe dzose idzi vana hybrid fit vanani vanani. Would you consider yourself buying a used Chinese brand? I feel like you like the Ford and Baki. I think I do. I like the back. It's impressing me much better than the Haval 2024. They get to go on. Until then, may you have a fantastic day. Enjoy. Becky K is coming up next on The Pulse. And then straight after that, BMT is going to be taking good care of you.